We were going through a foreclosure with his father, having a drug addiction. I said, it's a Black-owned business. She said, yes. I said, I don't want to do it because I had a stereotype that it wasn't going to be professional, so on and so forth.
Why do you think your mind, when was it conditioned to think what you thought about Black business?
My name's Roberta Moore. I'm the president and CEO of Moore Incorporated. I started my business in 2002 as a single parent of 3 boys. My forte is federal contracting. I am a healthcare staffing agency. I do a lot of staffing with physicians, allied health professionals like physical therapy, occupational therapy, respiratory, some ancillary, mainly for the federal government, like the VA hospitals and military treatment facilities.
Diversified game. Learn how to start, run, and sustain your business.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, I hope that you got your note takers on. If not, I got them in the description so you can get the bits and pieces of this game that is going to help your business. You hear a lot of people talking, oh, government contracting like it's easy. I'm bringing you somebody who is not just doing it, but she knows the likes of royalty in this space, like the Eric Coffees, because she's royalty herself. And hopefully she comes down here to South Florida and we can do even a round two, because I love the round twos. But Queen Roberta Moore giving us the game on how she can help your business level up. Yeah, I'm a consultant who loves to bring on other consultants and experts. Roberta, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Kellen. I'm doing great, doing great. So,
If you could sum it up for those who have ADHD and we got them just for a limited time, what's that one thing that you find yourself helping, the majority of your clients in business? What's that one thing?
I feel like it's if you have a will, there's a way mentality, and by any means necessary. So I feel like if you have that grit and you really want to do something, you'll make it happen.
Okay. And you're able to, find, well, and how do you find that grit? Because a lot of people have a business or they want to have a business, but they're kind of lost in the sauce. And they say, I want to do this, Roberta. I want to get the $100 million contracts that I've heard everyone else is getting online. How do you get me there by next month?
Right, right. Okay, so if we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of it all, I would say partnering for the $100 million contract. But even before you get there, you're going to make mistakes. And that's what business is about. It's not that you did it right the first time and you get this $100 million contract. Even if you were to actually bid on a $100 million contract and you lost it, you weren't the winner, you still want to ask the federal government for a debrief. And they have to look you in your face and tell you what was wrong with your contract or why, or your proposal, why you didn't get it. And so now they're looking you in the face and they're looking at you and they're like critiquing your proposal. And they're saying, well, you had a strength here in your area of your business. There was a strength here, but maybe your past performance, there was a weakness. Your overall overview of your company, we gave you the maximum points. We gave you less points on your past performance. We gave you less points on your strategy of implementation. And this is why. And so now they're looking you, Kellen, in the face, right? They're looking at your business. They're looking at your business name. And so the next time a proposal or a solicitation comes out, who do you think they're going to be looking for?
Yeah.
They're going to be looking for you because I had to sit here and speak to this man about his business and his proposal and why he wasn't selected. So now I know him. I know Kellen. So now I'm looking forward to seeing Kellen play ball with us. So that's how you kind of get a competitive edge, is by participating and then asking for the debrief.
Have you ever seen, and let me just shout out Palm Beach County, because it was the first place I've ever seen it in the 4 or 5 states that I've lived and been able to do some contracting. Have you ever seen a county, a state do not the debrief, but they tell you and they let you in the room when they're making their decision, and they're telling everybody right then why they're going to pick this company over that company and the strengths and the weaknesses. Have you ever seen that in real time?
I have seen something similar, but not really, because I've been mainly on the federal side as opposed to the state and local side. I mean, that is another animal, and they do things differently. Even agencies do things differently. So, like for instance, you could have a contract with the Navy, you could have it with NAVC or with NAV Air, and they're totally different animals.
Okay. Now, since you just jumped over to the federal like that, most people start in their local and they figure out the game. And when you get to the federal, they have, all the certifications, including their 8As, if they qualify. That federal, is it just because you're in DC that you deal with the federal, or is it just maybe, a different type of work that and help that people need? Like, why the feds?
Okay. Yeah, I do think that it has a lot to do with DC. I do think being in the metropolitan area, everything, the DMV, everything is federal. I mean, so if you cross over into DC and commit a crime, it's a federal crime. So, I do think that that does have something to do with it. And so for me, I'll just give you a little background. I'll take you back to the beginning. So I'm one of 8. I come from a family of, humble beginnings. And so the government had a program called the Stay in School program. And that Stay in School program allowed me to work while I was in school for the federal government. And I worked for the Navy. And so I was a civilian for the Navy for about 9 years. And I had a bright idea that I wanted to go home and take care of my baby, nurse my baby. So I resigned. And so one of my colleagues said, Roberta, there is a Black-owned business that has a contract here at Naval Surface Warfare Center. I think that you should manage the contract. Their office is in your backyard. It's right where you live. You should do it. And I said, it's a Black-owned business. She said, yes. I said, I don't want to do it because I had a stereotype that it wasn't going to be professional, so on and so forth. So time went by, she told me, yes, you need to go and manage this contract. So I went in, I had the interview with the company and I declined the job. I told them that I was an entrepreneur. I had no business at all, but I'm an entrepreneur. So they said, great, we like entrepreneurs, see you later. Hope you do well in business. Things got tight. I said, my sister said, if they will hire you once, they'll hire you twice, go back. So I went back, I interviewed, and it changed my life. So I did manage that federal contract. I was a fish out of water, Kellen, because mind you, I worked for the federal government. And people will tell you the federal government, most employees are lazy, okay? In small business, you are Jamaican. You have 15 million jobs. So I learned the business inside and out. So that was the school of business for me, working for that minority-owned company, and it changed my life. Otherwise, I wouldn't have ever gotten into government contracting. So I do say you need exposure. You need exposure to other small businesses, other minority-owned businesses, people that look like you, because otherwise I would have never known about it. And so Lindbergh Bing was the owner of L&E Associates. He was an 8A. He was graduating from the program, as well as he's the late Lindbergh Bing, as well as his executive vice president was John Schmidt. So John taught me the FAR, which is the federal Bible, the Federal Acquisition Regulation. So that is the Bible for federal contracting. So basically, my job was almost to go in my office and read the FAR. So go read the Bible, go read the government contracting Bible and come back to me and tell me what you think. So that's what John did with me. He would also tell me to read solicitations, come back and tell him what I thought, and he would show me how to go through a solicitation. So it got so good that I became, and the way this happened is because John was elderly and he wasn't good with computers. So I was always fixing his computer and helping him. And so that's when he just started mentoring me. And as a result, the owner of the business, Lindbergh Bing, started to mentor me. And so he was like, if John can do that, I can do this. So he started taking me out with him to the meetings. And then I started to meet the who's who's. And then I learned the terminology. And then I started managing the contracts. So people, his old Army vets and everything, they wasn't calling him. They were saying, I need to talk to Roberta. And he would stand in front of my office and ask me, Roberta, what did Joe Palau say? Roberta, what did, that kind of thing. So it was a school of business for me. So I do recommend anybody that's interested in it to work with another small business to get that exposure and allow yourself to be mentored by another government contractor. And then you can get those $100 million contracts. And you know how you get those? By partnering. You put together a team and then you can win them.
A couple things. I want you to tell them where they can get the Bible of federal contracting. Can they get it online? Is it free? Is it worth the investment for the novice? And also, if you can go deep into why do you think your mind was conditioned that if it was a Black business, because this is a thing that a lot of us have drank that Kool-Aid. And when you're now a Black business trying to get people to wake up, like we were talking offline, like that the movie They Live, it's like a fight, sometimes. And then we're fighting those who, if our own community doesn't respect us, how will others? But I need you to tell people where they can get that literature and if they should even invest in it, and the time, and what I had just mentioned about why you thought that about Black business.
Okay, so the FAR is free. And we used to have it in a big old, books and things of that nature. But now it's all online. And you don't really need to read the FAR. You just need to read, it's like law. It's a law book, basically. So you just need to read the clauses that affect you for that particular solicitation and your business. And so, but that just takes time and experience of working with them. So working with the federal government.
Hello everyone. Come along with London and Sydney as they show you around the vibrant country of Cameroon. We explore the heart of Africa through the eyes of London and Sydney. Two explorers who journey across the great city of Yaoundé, exploring its rich culture, vibrant market squares, cultural heritage, and wildlife. With giggles and excitement, London and Sydney Explore Cameroon takes you on a fun-filled adventure, providing insight into the country's culture and traditions through the pages of this book. It's packed with exciting stories and super cool facts about Cameroon that will make you go, wow. Get your copy now, available on Amazon and in libraries near you. There's only one easy way to experience the exploration of Cameroon, and it's through London and Sydney. Don't wait, get yours.
What was the other question, Helen?
Why do you think your mind, when was it conditioned to think what you thought about Black business? Like we have to tap into that because so few people even know that, they feel like that, even though they might be a Black business. In our community, there's a lot of self-hatred. So why do you think that your mind, like when was that conditioned? Was that an elementary thing? Was that something you learned in, college? Was it personal experience or something that was put into you into this, crazy country of ours? Like they cloned Tyrone. Did you eat the chicken? Did you drink the Kool-Aid? Like what?
Right. So I think it was from elementary school. I think it was my environment that I grew up in. And I think that, the doctors and the lawyers and everybody else that was a professional, you're thinking that they're always, Caucasian or something other than Black. And so not seeing your own people in those roles. And that's why I said, we have to show our children Black excellence. They need to see Black-owned businesses. They need to see that. And so I think that I didn't have enough exposure to that. I grew up in Arlington, Virginia, and we do have a little pocket where it was Black-owned businesses. And so we had a Black pharmacist there, and it was called Green Valley Pharmacy. And it is a historical landmark to this day in Arlington. But most people that came out of our area didn't become doctors, didn't become, lawyers. We had barbershops there, Black-owned barbershops, Black-owned auto mechanics and carry outs and things of that nature. But most of the people also on that strip were involved in drugs, were addicted to drugs. They were eating, the carry out food, so on and so forth. So we didn't have a lot of exposure to professional Black-owned businesses, or at least I didn't. So I didn't expect it to be a professional environment.
And I thank you for sharing that, because with all the talks of diversity and inclusion, it gets so interesting on sometimes when people get their position to give other people money and funding. And sometimes you can see, like, people do, they think, okay, Black-owned business, you don't have this, you don't have that. I tell everyone out there, again, teachable moments is what this podcast is about. If you're trying to do business with the government and you don't have your capability statement, you've missed the step. And it's a very basic step.
Right.
But nobody will teach you this even in Harvard unless you're in the government club or something, or the Harvard of the South, Grambling State University. Yeah, but I appreciate that, and that's going to be a full chapter in your book, if not maybe possibly half the book, because that can help people decolonize their mind, because a lot of our people are stuck in that. So what do we expect of others? Now, when you get over that, you fall in love with this Black company that's mentoring you. Can you talk about, was it any different working for a Black company? And did you take any of that, like, in your own company? Because we do things a little different culturally, the same way any other culture would do things, right? Japanese, when you go to Japan, they don't talk. They don't talk until after 4 or 5, when that sake and that good food comes. Then people get a little more chatty. But on the train, there's no talking. Culturally, people do things differently. Did you see anything different at the Black companies? And if so, explain for that person who's never been able to work for a Black company.
Yes, I mean, for me, it was, like I said, it was a school of business. I saw Black excellence. Mr. Bing had some great friends, that other colleagues that were 8As. I noticed that he hired other Black professionals. His accountant, his CPA was his cousin, and so it was family oriented. His son was one of the VPs there. He was in telecom, and he actually taught me some telecom, and I managed a telecom contract for IRS for L&E. And so it was just more like a family. We were more family oriented. I mean, there was a time when, Mr. and Mrs. Bing had to go to a family funeral. I watched the grandbaby in my office while I was writing proposals. And I have a picture of me with the baby's sippy cup in my office. So I think he bought my kids, the PS1 or whatever. I mean, those are my fringe benefits. There were just certain things that we did as a family. And so, I remember when I went through a divorce, Mr. Bing, he helped me with the down payment for my house. So I paid him back when I got my first contract through my business. I gave him a check for the whole amount and, everything. But it was more family oriented. We were professional. You're going to work. There were times I would work on proposals. I would be in the office almost like all night long. And he would be scared to leave. He's like, if something happens to you, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. You got to leave. And I'm like, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. I just got to finish this one thing. So I do feel like we do take care of our people. Like, we look after each other. And he asked me plenty of times, for some of that good old, down south cooking from my mother. Like, did your mom cook any? I don't even want to say the words, but, and here he was on, on the Hill lobbying for his business and everything, wearing his, suits, but he was still a Black man at heart. And so it really helped me to get immersed in my own culture.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. Taking care of people's kids, the community. I have the hashtag with unity. We all win. Easier to type than it sometimes is to practice. But like Seth Godin talks about in one of his 200 plus books, tribes, you got to find your tribe. Sometimes your tribe looks like you. Sometimes there'll be members that don't. Now, when you started your own business, is there a amount of money or was there amount of clients that you had already linked in? Because a lot of people that we see online, everybody's an entrepreneur and a philanthropist at the same time. They just got into business. But sometimes there's those people who don't know if they should jump off the swing yet. And they don't know, do I need $100,000 or do I need $1 million in my reserve? Where were you? So people can either know, oh, it's too soon, too early, possibly based on, the story you tell.
Well, that's why I say where there's a will, there's a way. And I had, three young Black men that I had to raise by myself. So I didn't have anything. I mean, basically, my credit was shot because we were going through a foreclosure with his father, having a drug addiction. And so I was really just hustling, I was hustling. So by any means necessary, as long as it's all legal. So I did do the 8A paperwork while I was at L&E. And I told Mr. Bing that I wanted to be in his 8A because he was graduating from the 8A program. And so when you graduate, you can get 49% of your work if you give it to another 8A. So the 8A would get 51% and you would keep the 49%. So he had a lot of contracts. Like I said, he had IRS, he had, NIH, he had some big contracts and some GSA. So I said, I wanted to be your 8A, but he had already made a deal with another 8A. And so she had an office in our building in a suite, like a couple doors down. So he had set her up an office there and everything. So she basically wiped him out, took all of his contracts. So I was left with nothing by the time I became 8A. And he pacified me. He thought, like, we made you. You don't really have what it takes to be an 8A, but okay, Roberta, you know what I'm saying? So it was kind of like, I'm going to pacify you. I'll make you think you can do it and everything. So what happened was I did end up getting my HubZone certification, and I used my mother's address because in HubZone is historically underutilized business zone. So based on where my mom lived, it was considered underutilized for business. So basically in the hood. So I use my mom's address. I use that to get my SAM registration, my cage code, everything. And then I got HubZone certified. So my first contract was as a HubZone as opposed to an 8A. But prior to that, I went to a conference for L&E and I had two cards. I had my L&E card and I also had my Moore Incorporated card. So I worked the whole room. It was a Homeland Security conference and I worked the room. I spoke to everybody in that room, right? And there was one Black guy sitting there with some glasses on and a laptop. And I said, he looks smart. I'm going to leave him my card. This is my last person I'm going to talk to him and I'm out the door. So I left him my card and I told him what I did. And I told him, I have a contract and I'm managing at the Pentagon. I have cleared professionals. I don't know where I'm going to put them. This contract is about to end, right? And I said, I don't know where I'm going to put them. I gave him this card and I rolled out. He called me. I can't tell you this guy's name to this day. I cannot tell you his name. He called me. He says, my friend has a business and they want to talk to you. I said, okay. So I talked to his friend on the phone. His friend tells me they got a big DIA contract. They're building up the infrastructure in Baghdad. They need top secret cleared IT professionals. So I'm like, awesome. I landed the big contract. Mr. Bing's going to be so proud of me. I went to Mr. Bing. I'm like, I got this contract. It's DIA. We could build up the infrastructure in Baghdad. He said, I don't want nothing to do with Baghdad. I said, okay. I left out of his office. I went back. I talked to them on the phone. I said, Mr. Bing isn't interested in doing any work in Baghdad. And he said, just a moment. His wife got on the phone. She said, you're HubZone, aren't you? And I said, yes. She said, I want to work with you. And that was how I was able to work for myself. So I sold her those candidates I sold her all the people that were on the Pentagon contract. So it was one girl on the Pentagon contract. I had gotten them all interim secret clearances through L&E. So all they needed to do was get an interim top secret and all the shots, and they would be out to Baghdad. So I told her what I had. My phone was ringing. It was popping. I just sent them all to DST, Data Solutions and Technology, Deborah Scott Thomas. So I sent them to her. My checks was coming in 33,000 here, 33,000 there. I was just getting so much money. That's why I said I wrote Mr. Bing the check for the second mortgage on my house. I was like, yeah, Mr. Bing, take that. So I say that where there's a will, there's a way. You know, if you're working at it, because I have been working and working and working at it. And then eventually she mentored me. I had a suite in her office. I had an office in there. And I mean, the rest is history. I ended up getting my 8A. And I mean, the stories go on and on.
Was it the naval career, or did you have to find out how to get people, the security clearance? Because typically people have to be in the military and, people don't, that's just not information people know how to go about and get if you need it for contracting.
Well, so L&E, they had a facilities clearance, so that means that they could hold clearances and put in the paperwork to get you cleared. So in other words, if you don't have a contract that requires a clearance, you're not going to be able to get one. So I had my security clearance while I was there. After a while, when I wasn't on a contract, it just ended. So if I wanted to get on a secured contract, I would have to go through the paperwork again and work with a company that holds a facilities clearance. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, and I hope people are out there Googling now facility clearance, and because you want to know and get prepared for what might grow. Because if you can get that clearance, it sounds like somebody's going to get this money, but and I know with technology, I have a family member. We won't say the 3-letter thing that he used to be a part of because I don't think you ever leave. Okay. But he says the hardest part as somebody who's, behind the scenes doing technology is finding other people who can be cleared. He's like, he's worked for this government agency, I think before he was, well, I won't even say that. I'll leave it alone because I'm sure he'd like that. But it's not just common knowledge on how to do that. So I wanted to make that clear because a lot of military people coming out, trying to figure it out. And I tell them, at least go talk to your local SCORE, your SBA, your Apex accelerators, formerly known as PTAC. Get involved and see, because you don't know, there's set asides for everybody, but you got to find them. They don't come to you like that.
Right. And Kellen, to that, you can be sponsored. So say, for instance, you and I partner on an opportunity and it requires our employees to have a top secret or secret clearance. And so if you already have a facilities clearance, you can sponsor me because we're on that contract together. And that way I would be in a position to get cleared professionals.
Hi guys, I'm Kai Gabiam from the Diaspora channel, a lover of Africa. If you love Africa as well and you would love to visit one day or to relocate to Africa, there is a course out there for you. And this course is My First Trip to Africa, a course well put together by a seasoned traveler, Kellen Cash Coleman. This course is designed to prepare you to travel better, which will save you both time and money. And the great news is this course costs only $20, guys. It can't get any better. Go right now and enroll to this course at www.diversifygame.com. Don't miss out.
This is good game, and this is why you guys tune in. You were talking about, those $30,000 checks and checks that you might have never seen in your life. But being in Arlington, maybe you did. I've lived in Arlington
No.
when I interned on the Hill. Maybe you saw them checks, but how did you prepare your mind to say, what I'm going to do with this money? Because most people, when they win the lotto, or they, are an athlete or a content creator making big money, they have so many stumbles and falls, and they can end up broke. It's the American way, some would say. So, how did you go about preparing yourself on how to save and invest?
I wasn't prepared. And so, but what I did do is I paid off that second mortgage that I had through Mr. Bing on my house. So I did that right away. And I used the money to like pay my salary, to pay myself. And part of the reason why I did that and then reinvest in my business is because in order to become 8A certified, you have to work 100% in your business. So you can't work for someone else. And so I had already prepared myself for that, because when I started the 8A program, I negotiated with Mr. Bing to not pay me as an employee anymore, but to pay me as a consultant, as a 1099. So he started paying me through my business. So basically, he was my first contract, so to speak, even though I was his employee. So I used that money when I left him, because now I can't give 100% to my business and to L&E. So I was like, well, let me just work 100% in my business and grow it. And so I ended up becoming 8A certified, and I used that money to pay my salary and to help me get through until I got my first contract.
Okay. And when we talk about, the money and the clearance, is that top secret, or is that secret clearance, or is that, the confidential clearance?
No, it
Because
was top secret. It was, so for the DIA deal, it was top secret. And most of the employees that I had at the Pentagon, they only required a secret clearance for the work they were doing. But the Baghdad deal was a top secret clearance. That's why I sold them to DST, because I couldn't hold their clearance. So she was taking the secret clearance and getting them an interim top secret, getting them all the shots and flying them out and sending them over to Baghdad. Some of the people that worked on that contract made more money than me, because they didn't have to. When you're overseas, you don't pay for housing. You don't pay for per diem. You don't pay for your food. So all the money you're making is just gravy. It's all cash. I mean, it's your money. It's not taxed, all of that. So they could go and stay for like 6 months, come back, go back and do it again. You got to come back to the United States to keep your citizenship. But after that, it's come home, and then go right back.
Well, let's tap into, are you able with your company to get people those overseas opportunities? And if you give an example of certain positions, because I've seen truck drivers go over to the Middle East to make over $250,000. And I've seen, other professionals that, have done, maybe some clerical work go, and I don't know exactly what they made. I know the truck drivers because I hold a CDL, and I always told them, hey, if y'all ever need any help, as a young man, I can get out of this oil field anytime, because that money is a little different. I mean, we were making great money in the oil field for 2 weeks of work,
Yes.
making over 6 figures, but can you give it like paint a picture, especially for that young person who's thinking maybe college isn't for me, or maybe it is and I finished, but I don't know what to do and I can go overseas. Give us the game.
Okay, so there with the government, it's considered OCONUS, so outside the continental US. And so, like for instance, I've had OCONUS contracts where I've placed a doctor outside the United States. So he would work in another state, or OCONUS, meaning that there is a military professional that has been sent outside the United States, and so you backfill his position. So it's called OCONUS, right? Now, the thing with OCONUS is that it's a lot of paperwork. I think you do better working in the United States, but if you're not a business owner and you want to go somewhere else, yes, you can easily get on one of those contracts, because I managed a contract that we had with the Air Force for FAP, its Family Advocacy Program, and that was in PACAF in the Pacific. as well as, so we were in Japan and Alaska. We were also in USAFE, which was Europe. And so it was for licensed clinical social workers. They were all US citizens, and they worked in Europe, in Paris, like I said, France, all of those different places, just as a government contractor for our company. So those kind of contracts are, it's a lot of red tape, but as an individual, as a professional, yes, you can get on those contracts. If, I mean, they're out very often, so like that FAP contract, family advocacy, is still in place right now. They still have licensed clinical social workers all over. And that was just the Pacific and Europe. So they have in other places where there are Air Force bases, military bases in different countries, US military bases.
Please educate us on some of the, if you can do all that, some of the prices for those positions, because you do have positions that want to get out of America and maybe go into places where they might be from, right? And this is a way for them to relocate, or even when you say social workers who we know do not get paid enough in this country. Same with teachers. I have a friend been in China for the last 15 years because she said the way they pay is so much different. So can you get us excited about, without the cap? No, we don't want any cap. But what, you've seen, and is it, a physician here can make, a good amount of money, but can they make $1 million going overseas?
I mean, you're still going to get paid according to the US criteria, and they will take into consideration the fact that you're outside of your country. So you may get some other perks in there. So I'm not saying it's a get rich quick scheme, but you will get a decent rate. The other thing is with the Baghdad thing, the reason why that was they were getting paid so much is because it was war. And so it was a result of war and going into a war-torn country and building up the infrastructure. So you're going to get paid enough to be able, they'll do relocation. Like with that, we relocated, we paid, we helped them find housing, packed up their house, all of those things are built into the contract. So it's very intricate. So it may not look like, oh, I'm just getting $1 million, but all of the other fringe benefits and perks that are involved makes you have a comfortable life.
Okay. And so can your company help people? Because I want people also to be able to not just learn, but if they have, some real life needs, can you help them with that? And please give them a starting point, because what I don't want, and it's a pet peeve of mine, and I keep telling you guys who are listening, don't call somebody talking about, hey, I need some help. I got $500. Maybe they open up their computer and look at the screen for that, but this is a different level. And, let me know if that's even work that you want to do and where that work starts, because we know the price is only going up.
Yes. So for me, I'm willing to, and it's part of giving back to the community as well as CEO advisory boards, because we need to have peer groups. We need to have like a board or someone that you can bounce these things off of and kind of tweak you and help you get on the right direction. If it's even, it doesn't necessarily have to be federal contracts. It could just be business in general. But yes, I'm very much interested in helping businesses to start up, to get themselves certified, to get themselves, and it's a lot of work. So I'm not going to tell you that, I'm going to do the work for you. I'm going to prepare you to do the work. I'm going to show you how to do the work and get you in the right direction. And the first thing, if you want to do anything with the federal government, is that you have to register at SAM.gov. You need to have a cage code, a DUNS number, all of those things. And so that's just first things first. And like you said, Kellen, a capability statement, those are just the basics of federal or business in general,
Well, after, because I would hope that the audience that has stuck around, that they have those things that you need to just get in the game. What about actually getting the contract? because I've seen more and more companies say we can get you partners in, these foreign lands and connect you, but sometimes you don't know who you're connecting with. So, people really need to find the contract, and then sometimes to have that mentorship, paid mentorship to actually make sure you fulfill everything in here, because the contracts are written on one thing one way, and then on another line, it's talking Chinese, and you need to be able to translate and put it together for a lot of people, because people don't go to school to learn to read contracts unless you went to law school or you're in this game. So can you find those contracts? Is that even something that you like to tell clients you can do?
Well, in reference to finding them, it's a science. It is really a science behind what you go after. The federal government buys absolutely everything. There's nothing they don't buy. So you have the biggest customer in the world. So it doesn't matter what you do, they're going to buy it. It's just understanding what vehicle are they going to use. So for instance, they may use a GSA schedule. Do you have a GSA schedule? Do you even have the labor categories or the items on that schedule? So say I have a schedule 70 is for IT, right? Say they want a CISSP, right? And I have everything on my schedule except for that. Am I going to win? No, I can submit a labor category or whatever, unless I have like a subject matter expert and I put them into that and I, really write around it. But really, the truth of the matter is that I don't have it. I don't have that line item on my schedule. So you don't want to waste your time, going after opportunities that you're not going to win. Some of those opportunities are already earmarked for certain companies. And so the real deal is that you want to get the pre-solicitation. You want to get it, and when it's a source is sought. So when it's a source is sought, the government is saying, we don't have a source for this. We're looking for sources. Then we're going to decide if we're going to make this small business, if we're going to make it woman-owned, we're going to put it in the 8A program, we're going to put it in the Hub Zone program, or are we going to make it full and open competition? So there's, it's a method to the madness. It's a science behind it, but it's really about relationships. And so like you talked about going to the PTAC, you talked about talking to the end user. So if I know you, Kellen, I like to do business with people I like, know, and trust, right? The government, the buyers are humans just like you and I. And so if they know us, they see us, we've been marketing to them before the opportunity hits, because by the time it hits, they've already done all of their capture. So you want to do capture, and all of that is like a well-oiled machine. And then you have to play the game. You got to be in the game. So you got to play ball. And that means you do have to put proposals out. So it's all, it's more than just, oh, okay, I got a contract, or, oh, okay, I see this contract, I want to go after it. You want to start talking about it, being in the game. Like I was in the game. I worked for L&E. I was in the game. I was on a contract. I had something to offer another small business. So if somebody came to me and they say, hey, Roberta, I have access to doctors or I have access to nurses, then I might be in the game with them right now. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm looking for some nurses or I'm looking for some doctors. So we might have a agreement, so it's things like that.
How often is it that you find somebody who doesn't know, who's been in the game for a while, what these basic terms are? And I ask you that because I've sat at a PTAC meeting in Seattle. This guy they said it publicly, was doing millions in government contracting. And he said, what did she say? Source of what? And it's not like a common thing. And I'm like, this guy did millions. I'm like, work with me. I'll tell you all of the things that I know.
And that's the beauty of it. Just because you've been doing millions doesn't mean that you know everything about government contracting. And so you're constantly learning. And if that's the one thing I can tell you is to always be a student, always learn, because things are changing and government contracting is changing. It has evolved from when I got started. I mean, it has really changed over the years. When Mr. Bing was doing his 8A, they were sole sourcing unlimited amount. Like you could get sole sourced $100 million contract. after people started walking in there with, fur coats on and driving their Benzes, they said, "Oh no, you're only getting sole sourced up to 3.5 million now." So things change over time, and they make, new rules and regulations. So always be a learner, go and learn everything you can possibly learn that will help you, in your business. I'm not saying just learn and be a professional learner, not make any money, but
Yeah.
you
I,
know,
I, prom- I promised my audience, I met Roberta and we had a great conversation yesterday. We are not clones that we know. We don't have the Neuralink because a lot of the things that she had just told you, you hear me talk about every chance I get, especially that, a lot of these government contracts, they know who they want to get. You can read it and say, wait, this is perfect for me. And then you're like, oh, but I would have had to have been in business for over 10 years, work in the whole state of, Florida or Kentucky, wherever, to qualify, because the way they write it, it's very detailed and specific. So I just want people to know, like we had just met, but she is definitely like off air. I think we have even a deeper conversation, but I would definitely charge you guys for that. And like she charges because it might go from, talking about one thing to another. I'm not even going to give you guys any hints, but it was a very nice conversation. And we met each other through the blackdirectory.com. Always give a shout out to the blackdirectory.com. Sir Brian over there and the whole team that's put the largest Black directory in the world together. You guys go check that out. I don't want to give them too much, Roberta, because I really want you to show more love to your YouTube, aka/podcast, aka/the book that I know you have something written out. Talk about when we're going to see more love in all of those areas I mentioned.
Oh my goodness. It's all, well, Kellen, you're going to tell them that because you're kind of putting me on the track for those things. I mean, you've been planting the seed, you planted the seed, and it's things you've been thinking about, but you don't put it all together yet. So I will let you be the first to announce it. And in reference to the Black Directory, I can also share my calendar so that if they want to learn about the Black Directory and actually have a 30-minute meeting with me, they can. So I'll share my Black Directory calendar with you as well for your audience.
Awesome. I will take it. And that's a free meeting, you guys. So, tap into the free, because if you contact her through her site and she starts giving you the big prices, she didn't take hints. She didn't really tell us, where it starts at. But you heard $30,000 checks coming through. So that's like the Meanie Leaf checks, man. Them Trump checks she was getting. But let the people know where they can find you. And, any last words that you have for the people to encourage, whether they're new or already, winning in the entrepreneurship, but want to win in the federal contracting, that you can help them out with.
Well, I'll say, like I said before, I didn't start with a silver spoon in my mouth, nor did Mr. Bing. I didn't have anybody backing me financially or anything like that. My mentor did give me a loan when I got my first contract, even though I had burned through all the money she had given me for the DIA deal. But when I got my first federal contract, she did help me out with my payroll. And so I say all of that to say, make relationships. It's all about relationships. You and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that relationship with the Black Directory. And so we just had our first annual conference, and it was like earlier this week, right before the Congressional Black Caucus conference. But it's all about relationships and networking and getting to know each other and trusting one another so that we can do more together than alone.
Yes, we can. You guys have heard the slogan. I could do a Joe Rogan podcast. You guys hear me say that. I could go 3 hours with Roberta. I'd probably fly to DC, do it in person. She'll come down to South Florida. But for right now, you've gotten a taste of this. And I thank you for going to the end. I know most of you are listeners, but feel free to go over to the YouTube, go put a name with a face, and it's a lovely smiling face. You will see Miss Roberta. I'm talking about her. Mine is more of a grimace maybe, but it's all good. But I thank you guys for coming to the end. You can make any comments, you can send any emails, you can like, you can subscribe wherever you're experiencing this. But most importantly, I want you to share this game with somebody. It will change their life. Y'all be blessed.
Are you tired of the rat race in America? Are you ready to visit the motherland to relax and rejuvenate? Are you ready to explore all that Africa has to offer? Then check out the brand new Diversified Game Academy course, Prepare for My First Trip to Africa. Are you worried about being able to afford the trip? We got you. We will show you how to travel either on a budget or as a baller. Learn how to stretch the value of the USD. Did you know that 100 United States dollars is worth over 1,000 South African rand, or 10,000 Kenyan shillings, or 54,250 West African CFA? Are you worried about taking your kids? Get the game from Kellen Cash, a bona fide world traveler, having traveled to almost 20 countries, several of those in Africa. Get the game on taking your kids on their first trips. Learn how to find the best tickets, get the visas, and plan your own adventures in Africa. Don't let Eddie Murphy have all the fun. Plan your own coming to Africa trip starring you, produced by you, and featuring you. If you are ready for a life-changing experience, sign up for our course today, Diversified Game Academy. Get prepared and purchase at diversifiedgame.com.